Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions shattered. Friedrich Nietzsche once said that, "They told you love would save you, that it would be pure, redemptive, unconditional, that the right woman would heal the cracks you've never dared to face alone." From childhood, through stories and songs, they whispered a promise into your subconscious. One day, someone will come and make everything okay. And you believed it. Not because you were weak, not because you were naive, but because you were never taught to see through the illusion. But what if that promise was never meant to be kept? What if the love you've been searching for isn't salvation, but strategy? And what if nature, the philosopher they told you to fear or misunderstand, saw it coming all along? Nature didn't write fairy tales. He wrote with a scalpel, cutting through masks, myths, and the emotional comfort zones we build around our egos. And when he examined love, women, and the way we relate to one another, what he found wasn't beautiful. It wasn't polite, but it was real. Most of us, especially men, still aren't ready to face that. Because here's the truth. You don't love her. You love the version of her that reflects who you wish you were. You love how she validates you, how her presence whispers, "You are enough." But validation isn't love. What you call love might just be a carefully crafted illusion that keeps you emotionally obedient. Women, through necessity, learned to master power in a world that denied them visibility. They weren't given swords, so they learned to fight with silence. They weren't offered control, so they mastered influence. Not because they were born manipulative, but because they were forced to operate from the shadows while men claimed the light. And that's where the modern man still fails to see clearly. You mistake strategy for softness. You confuse adaptability with innocence. You think she's fragile. You think her love is unconditional. You think her tenderness is purity. It's not. It's power, refined, rehearsed, and executed with precision. While you pour out your emotions and call it vulnerability, she listens carefully, scanning your words for leverage. While you dream of soulmates, she's calculating the cost of closeness, weighing need against control, desire against influence. Not out of malice, but instinct. Because she learned long ago that the one who understands the game but never speaks of it wins. And what about you? You were raised to idealize her, to place her on a pedestal so high that it blinds you. You don't see the strategy because you don't want to. You prefer the dream, the muse, the good girl, the healer. But what if those roles are just masks? Masks she's learned to wear because they work. Nietzsche exposed the lie not to condemn women, but to dismantle the stories men tell themselves about them. Because as long as you believe she's morally superior by nature, as long as you think her affection is without motive, you'll keep surrendering your agency for emotional security. And she'll accept that power, not out of hatred, but because the system taught her to use it. You're not being loved. You're being managed. And the scariest part? You like it. You like the comfort, the worship, the emotional anesthesia that helps you avoid yourself. Because the moment you stop needing her as your redemption, you'll have to face what's behind that need. And that, not heartbreak, is what truly terrifies you. But fear wears disguises. One of its favorites is romantic devotion. You think you're loving her purely. You think you're giving yourself freely. But look deeper. What you're offering isn't love, it's bargaining. You're saying, if I give you my heart, will you fix the parts of me I can't face? You're not seeking a partner. You're seeking a solution. And while you offer your soul for comfort, she listens, not to your words, but to your needs. Not because she's cruel, but because every vulnerability you reveal becomes a map of your emotional pressure points. And she learns them fast, not to hurt you, but to position herself in your psyche where she becomes indispensable. Nietzsche saw this. He saw that what we call love is often a contest for emotional territory. Who controls the rhythm of closeness? Who withholds first? Who yields last? These aren't questions of affection. They're questions of power. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The one who needs less controls more. You give her everything, your time, your attention, your identity, and call it honesty. She gives you what you crave, just enough to keep you chasing, and calls it connection. But it isn't connection. It's choreography. We've built a culture where women are taught to influence without appearing to lead, and men are taught to submit while believing they're in control. It's not her fault. It's not yours. It's the result of centuries of conditioning, men dominating the outer world, women mastering the inner one. And now, in modern love, you walk into the trap smiling. She doesn't need to argue. She only needs to suggest. She doesn't need to demand. She only needs to desire. And by doing so, she shapes your choices, your identity, your life, without ever raising her voice. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. You call her mysterious because you don't understand her. You don't understand her because you've never questioned your own myths. You still think love is about unity. She knows it's about leverage. And when she pulls away, it haunts you, not because she's gone, but because your reflection left with her. Nietzsche would say, you never loved her. You loved how she made you feel about yourself. She was the stage where you performed your worth. Now the stage is gone, and you're left with silence and truth. She didn't deceive you. She just stopped playing the role you wrote for her. You didn't see her. You saw your idea of her. And when she stopped performing it, you called her cold, cruel, detached. But maybe the real betrayal was yours, for loving a fantasy and expecting her to live inside it. Nietzsche didn't condemn women. He condemned men who refused to grow up, men who wanted muses instead of mirrors, angels instead of humans in all their terrifying complexity. If you're ready to stop blaming her, you're ready to face yourself. Not with guilt or shame, but with clarity. And from clarity, something radical can begin. Not the end of love, but its transformation. You were taught that love is the highest virtue, that selfless love is noble. But what if that selflessness is just a mask for dependency? What if beneath the gestures and grand words hides a quiet fear? If I done to give everything, she won't stay. So you offer more. You compromise more. You erase yourself to become what you think she wants, not because you love her, but because you fear being without her. That's not nobility, it's submission disguised as romance. And while you think you're being brave, she feels something else entirely: control. Not through force, but through your willingness to orbit her approval. Because here's the truth Nietzsche hinted at, though few are willing to hear. Love rooted in need is never equal. She may not ask you to change, but you do anyway. She may not demand obedience, but you offer it anyway. Why? Because you've convinced yourself her acceptance is your salvation. But she never asked to be your savior. She was simply herself, and you turned her into a mirror for your worth. And when that mirror cracked, you didn't just feel loss. You felt collapse, because it wasn't love you were protecting. It was the story that says, if she loves me, I am whole. If she stays, I matter. But stories aren't truth. And when reality intrudes, you call it betrayal. Nietzsche would call it awakening. The lie isn't that she has power. The lie is that you refuse to see it. You called her gentle, but she was observant. You called her nurturing, but she was strategic. You thought she surrendered, but she was choosing. Always choosing. Because she knew the one who sees the dynamic clearly holds the key, and now the illusion begins to crack. You remember her smile, but behind it was calculation. You remember how she sensed your emotions before you spoke them. You thought she was intuitive, and she was. But for her, intuition is survival. It is how she stays a step ahead in a world that denied her open power but allowed her to shape it from the shadows. This isn't blame, it's reality. You live in a world where love is sold as mutual surrender but practiced as mutual leverage, where vulnerability is branded as virtue but used as currency. And once you see that, you either grow up or break down. Most break. They return to the myth, find another muse, another stage, another illusion. They say, "This time will be different." But it won't, because the roles remain. Only the actors change. And until you stop needing her to play the part, you'll never meet the person behind the mask. But what happens when the mask is gone? When you stop seeking roles and start seeing reality, you begin to recognize what was always there. Not manipulation, not malice, but instinct. A woman aware of her lack of institutional power, mastering relational power instead. Not to control you, but because it's the only power she was ever allowed to have. So ask yourself, not whether she's ready to love you, but whether you're ready to see her without the myth. Because only then can you see yourself. And only then does love stop being a story and become a revolution. If this opened your eyes, if it made you uncomfortable in a way that felt true, share it, like it, and subscribe. Not for entertainment, but because you're done with illusions and ready to see things as they are. If this changed you, even a little, help it reach someone else who's ready to wake up too.